People from across the political spectrum in East Texas are speaking out against yesterday's assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. That includes East Texas GOP delegate Craig Liccardi. He says that as a Smith County precinct chair, he is in Milwaukee attending the convention. He recounts his reaction to yesterday's events, including President Biden's response.
It was a shock. I was like, somebody is really resorting to political violence. To echo what President Biden said earlier, that there's no place in American politics for this kind of violence. So, like I said, I was pleased to hear that, and I think others need to sound the same thing. Cooler heads need to prevail.
The Republican National Convention starts tomorrow. It runs through Thursday. There have been many questions surrounding how law enforcement reacted during yesterday's shooting at a Trump rally. KLTV's Michael Richardson spoke with Smith County Sheriff Larry Smith to get his thoughts on what went wrong.
How could this possibly happen? That's a question on the minds of many Americans today as the nation grapples with yesterday's fatal shooting at a Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Smith County Sheriff Larry Smith worked for over 20 years in the Bureau of Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. He says no security plan is ever foolproof and highlighted difficulties from the outdoor event.
You could have somebody on top of one of these buildings. Anywhere you can get elevation above your target is what you're looking for.
The suspect in the shooting was able to gain elevation over former President Donald Trump, unnoticed by Secret Service until shots clogged the air.
They have advanced teams that go check everything, check the buildings, how the layout is, and that's why it surprises me from what I've heard, if that is in fact correct, that this person was able to get this close.
As authorities investigate a motive, relationship tracing may be key.
You're going to identify people that he runs around with. You're going to talk to anybody that has been with him over the last several weeks.
With the Republican National Convention set to begin tomorrow, Smith expects a change.
I think it's going to impact it tremendously from a security level. Beefing up security, changing the plans, vet people better and check people better coming into the convention than they would have before.
For now, hundreds of Republicans head to Milwaukee, where Trump is expected to secure his third straight GOP nomination and name his running mate. Michael Richardson, East Texas News.
There has been one confirmed death from yesterday's shooting. 50-year-old Corey Compatore, who was a former firefighter.